Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, and it's Friday morning coffee conversation and Hypnosis Shop Talk, and that one always gets me tongue-tied, so it's probably like it's early. It's early. I'm tongue-tied. I'm not gonna lie. I'm totally tongue-tied today. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here. We are live on TikTok and YouTube, and I'm trying something new because we were trying this with the laptop. So because I can put the phone on a different spot. So first off, I want to say good morning, Alex, TGIF. I hope you're having an amazing day. Hello, Purple Princess. Thank you for being here. And I just want to thank you so much for your support and always joining me on these lives. So I'm not talking to myself, even though I talk to myself every single day. I do. Actually, it's funny when you talk about talking with yourself. When I drive, I do so much inner mind work. It's crazy. I was doing this working through some stuff as I was driving down to the coast because, as you can all see in the background, we are not up in Vernon in the mountains. We are on the coast, Lower Mainland today, working and doing, and at that office. And yeah, I really get 4.5 hours of self-therapy time, and driving seems to be that self-therapy. So there's a lot happening today. So we got a lot to dive into on the show this morning. One of the things I want to touch in today is some of the sessions that happened over the last couple of days and the significance of them. And I have permission from everybody to discuss the details. I will leave out their personal details, of course, but the ones that we're going to discuss today, the soul regression sessions that happened, there's something happening in the world. And I know it's 777 today and that we're in this portal of energy. And one of the meditations that really resonated with somebody I do follow here on TikTok. I did put on my Telegram, The Journey with Jen Snow, so that you guys could sit with that one and see how it resonates with you. And it's all about filling the cup, that chalice of energy that within your heart space. So this is heart space energy that is going to open up the upper chakras. And it's funny when she started talking about that, I kind of giggled because part of one, not just the drive down, but over the several couple days prior to the full moon, actually, and then into that energy, there's been a lot of removing anything that is standing in the way of my own personal full connection to my light body, to source, to all that is above and below me, and that access to that remembrance of how to work with energy, how to move through source, how to create with energy and be in flow with it. So it's not something that I'm thinking about doing, but something that is just automatically happening. And I'm really seeing massive shifts with that in little ways, in fun ways. But there's been this shedding happening. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but this really intense feeling of working through a lot of layers all at once, where it's not just one focus. And for those of you, who saw the live, we went through, working through a layer so you guys could see what a soul regression session typically can look like with my good friend Jen Dodds and I. And that was all about letting go of things and people that no longer serve me. And the reason we did this session was so that you guys could see what that looks like, what it feels like, what a person, kind of typically goes through when we go into a soul regression, into a past life regression, and some of the processes that we use to get you into that space, but also help you work through that space and release the things that have imprinted, that you've carried forward from another incarnation into your current incarnation, and the ability to release and heal them, to understand them, to learn the lessons, to move through. For me in that life, there was a mumble jumble of emotion because I lost my father in that life, and my whole purpose of that life was to experience loss. And then, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at things, being human, we have this beautiful thing called free will, and we can process through, we can take what we want, we can hold on to what we want, we can resonate with what we want, we can imprint, we can absorb, we can live in any energy because we have free will. Even if it doesn't align with our purpose or our mission or the reason that we chose that life, we can go on different tangents because, well, we have free will. We have the capacity to do so. It's part of this space where we forget who we are at the core, and then we spend this journey, this adventure. And I'm calling it adventure these days because it really is an adventure. Remembering, and we're working hard at remembering right now. We're really in this phase of transition with the earth, and whether you believe that the earth is transitioning into a higher dimension, or the splitting of the earth, depending, I'm not here, I don't want to change anybody's belief system. So depending on where you line with that, is the elevation and growth of our frequency goes from 3D to 5D. There's a lot happening, and right now we are really coming into this beautiful opportunity. And I always say they're opportunities because sometimes they don't feel like opportunities, but most of the time they are, to change, to shift, to start to release the layers of the onion that have implemented and imprinted upon us, and the ones that we live by, and that we sit with, and that we create with. So in the last 2 weeks, I want to say, like, every time I'm in the car, every time I'm driving, and I go into my own meditation, because I do meditate every day. Mostly, I really enjoy a meditation before I go to sleep, because I'm a bit lazy in the sense that, and I don't say it in a bad way, but when I'm working through stuff, I know there is a physical, mental, emotional, and vibrational component to everything we do. And working through that, it is really nice, and has worked out really well for me, at least, to give the processing through that happens at the physical space, the time and energy, to be assisted through the light beings that I connect and work with on a regular basis, or those who are stepping forward and can connect and be a part of that process, as long as my highest good is their soul intent. And so we work through that. And I've noticed that is a technique that I started utilizing when I was first working through my kidney issues, my kidney failure, and looking at improving that, my GFR, my function. It was an intuitive moment that came to me, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do this. So I did the hologram healing. I sat with the hologram, really felt that imprint really move into my kidneys, connect with my kidneys. And then I actually, in a way, surrendered it to the light beings that were there assisting me and guiding me, and gave it up to them that while I was sleeping, that they could continue to help my physical body integrate into that light, into a healthy tissue, a healthy functioning kidney. And I was very specific about what it is that I was looking for with help. And I made it really black and white. So I always feel like when you're working with your physical body, black and white really does help your physical body understand what the desired outcome is and what you're moving to. Same with the subconscious. So I do try my very best to kind of cover every avenue. And it's the way my brain works. So I kind of have to work with how things work for you, and where you resonate, what language resonates with you. Because when we're doing these journeys, whether we're doing self-healing, whether we're doing past life regression, whether we're just, whether it's, for entertainment, or it is to kind of start to release those reoccurring patterns, those old habits, the legacy generational trauma patterns, ideas, belief systems, things that are keeping you stuck and frozen in time, frozen where you are and not moving towards where you want to be. Really, is a lot of what we see in soul regression sessions. And sometimes it's current incarnation, sometimes it's alternate incarnation, sometimes it's alternate timelines, sometimes it's past lives. I mean, just depends on where your belief system lies. And sometimes they're just simply metaphors that your subconscious mind has decided to move through, so that the story that you are currently creating by and with is no longer the story. So it begins to shift, right? So it's just, again, there's a spectrum of possibilities. And I mean, I've had people go from earthly lives to non-earthly lives, to the void, into space, like into light, into um, different aspects of nature. And so, I mean, there's a whole lot there. And the imagination, the subconscious, we often refer to it as the Akashic records. The Akashic records are the gatekeeper of many things, whether it be our soul history or the universal history we have access to. Well, your subconscious mind, in my opinion, in my understanding, is that library. So when we get in there, we are really getting into the access and moving through the doorway into that space that we can, and I always say filing cabinets. They go into the different filing cabinets that have different files in it that we can access. And this couple weeks, I really noticed both, like, with my own meditations, my own work, and in session, it is like multiple layers that are, road mapped, whether they're, working in the same tune of things that are creating the same outcome, or just multiple layers that are now like, it's time, my purpose, my job, what I've been doing for this individual person no longer lines up in harmony and unity, and we need to process through. This isn't working anymore. And like, they're literally jumping out of the session and finding ways to be acknowledged, so that even if they don't tie into the topic of the soul regression session that we started off, they're coming up at the appropriate times during a session to then be acknowledged, then be heard, and then be worked through. So, and taken back to the origins and the root cause, so that they themselves can create transformation and be transformed into a positive piece of our vibrational, mental, physical being that is in alignment with where we're going. And it's funny because we go through, when in the work that we do with soul regression and hypnotherapy, I often see like these waves of things coming in the room and through. It's like everybody kind of syncs up, and it's kind of fun because you never anticipate it, but it kind of it works itself out naturally and in balance. And it's so funny because when it does, is you're sitting back and watching and being a part of the wave of shedding and releasing the shadows, the old, outdated, misunderstood pieces and energy that we hold on to in emotion. I find that as a collective, we kind of go through these different waves, and we find our way in this path together, which creates that ripple effect that allows vibrational change to begin, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. And that is one of the secrets that I've really noticed that we don't often talk about, is that as we create change for ourselves, we are creating change in the world around us, soft and gently. And it's not because we have to. That's not the point of it. It's a natural positive effect that as we shift, that ripple effect goes out into the collective consciousness, and then it begins to settle in that collective consciousness. And in that collective consciousness, we have the opportunity to align up with it. So as we shift and change ourselves, there's so much, it creates such a positive thing throughout the collective that it's not our job. It's not like, like that's why you have to do it, but it is a positive kind of sidebar to it, which is kind of fun because I'm starting to see that sidebar happen through the work that I've seen in the last couple of weeks with the clients, and the shifting in how people respond to them, react to them, how people sit and be with them that are in their lives, that they don't have no idea that they're doing these sessions or working through what is holding them back, and what old patterns that may be generational, maybe from this life or their own soul's journey, because we come back into this beautiful earth to be able to like shed all of those layers. And we really are in a time of big changes and capacity to really start shedding a lot of energy, a lot of vibration, a lot of old stuff that isn't sitting well anymore, right? We think about that. It's not sitting well anymore. It's not sitting with us anymore. It is just there and it doing its job because that's what it's always done. But it really doesn't actually resonate with where our consciousness is, where our vibration, our frequency is settling now, because we're moving forward. We're changing, we're shifting, we are evolving. So And I just thought it was really interesting how this pattern of, multiple layers are shifting in one session. Now, for me, for those of you who have never had a session with me, my sessions are 3 hours now. They are 3 hours long because I never actually anticipated that happening. That was never the plan. It started to happen um, in flow. Like it just started to happen to naturally move into that space where we spend a lot of time connecting, communicating, and working through surface layers in the conversation. And it's not intended, but it just happens. And I've noticed that having that span, that space of time has really allowed so many people that I've been working with lately to really let go of a lot of the stuff that's up front, so to make room so that we can dive into that deeper stuff a little more quickly, a little more easily, and without having to spend not as much time, but dedicated time to some of that surface layer stuff that is in the way, that is there, that has been kind of wrestling and rolling around and kind of keeping a layer over top of the core outdated patterns, habits, behaviors, ideas, and belief systems, emotions. And so it's been a really interesting process. And at first I thought I thought it was just like once, it's happened, right? Okay, it happened. But then it started happening. It started happening more and more and more. So I've just actually changed the scheduling around so that that's the time period. And what I'm noticing in this time period is that, like I said, in this past couple weeks, there's a lot of work being done in that 3-hour sessions where it's multiple parts, it's multiple pieces, it's multiple past lives, multiple old energy vibration that's stuck in the aura, stuck in the body, stuck in the mind, old emotions. And so it's been really neat. One of the sessions 2 days ago, 2 days ago, I had this client come in, and we had our first session 2 weeks ago and really worked through. She was, having a lot of issues. She'd lost her voice. And she is a singer. And so, losing your voice is a big thing. It's a huge thing. That is your profession. That is how you work through things, how you create life. That's your source of creation. And she had lost her voice several months ago. She was dealing with some lung stuff going on. And this has been something that she's kind of dealt with for a long time, but it kind of hit the max capacity on the loss of the voice. And so we were working through, and she had come because, she tried a lot of things and thought, well, why not? And by the end of that session, working through the energy, a lot of energy stuck, a lot of emotion stuck, a lot of self-realizations of what the voice meant to her, and working through all that and working through to change that perception, that connection in the subconscious mind, and start to rewrite the programming around that, the emotions tied to the voice, and what it meant to her, and what the inner conflicts that were going on. Because there are some times that you want your voice to be for your own personal life, but because it's her job, and there's a lot of inner conflict there, so we had to work through the pieces and parts of her that were in conflict. And by the end of the session, she actually had her voice back. And it's really funny because it was such a soft transition as we were working through the inner conflicts and moving through the past lives, moving through the pinnacle points in this incarnation, that I didn't zone in on it right away. I was kind of like, it was the end of the session. We were having a little debrief and talking, where she actually noticed it. And I was like, oh yeah, your voice is totally back. She's like, did you know when it came? I'm like, honestly, I didn't notice, because she just started talking. And in hypnosis, one thing I do find is that if there's stuff going on in the external world, they don't always come through in the hypnosis world. Like if you are going through something when we're in trance, sometimes those symptoms kind of pause while we're in trance. And so I just naturally was going with it. And yeah, when she came out of hypnosis and we came out of the session and we were debriefing, she was like, oh my God, my voice is back. And her voice has been back ever since, but we still have more work to do, because there were a lot of multiple layers and inner conflicts and old patterns and belief systems that were still now beginning to surface as we were removing and releasing layer by layer. And so when she came back, when we came in, she came in with her journaling, because I would suggest, things will come up, just write them down so we can talk about them, see how important they are to you, what they mean to you, how they resonate with you, how you resonate with them, and let's work through this. And that's, again, why all of these sessions now are, oh, my computer is doing something weird. Don't know what that is. All right then. Interesting. I'm hoping it's not dying on me. So yeah, we were working through that, and as we were working through, maybe it's this. I don't know. Hang on. No, put you there. Okay, see if that makes a difference. Sorry, my computer is doing something weird. So we were working through that, and as she came in, a lot around caretaking was coming up, and being a caretaker and what that meant, and how that was emotionally creating a lot of inner turmoil for her. And so we ended up starting with the caretaker, not that the piece of her that it, referred to, the part of her that referred to herself as the caretaker. And that caretaker had a lot to say, and there was a lot of emotions around that part of her life. And she was it was very intense in that sense. And when one of the questions that I ask is, what is it that you need from Nadine? And that caretaker stepped back, and she really needs to be heard, and she needed something. She felt alone, and that piece of her felt very alone, very angry, very upset, very, infuriated, very, in this space of anger, because a big part of her life was caretaking, but it felt like, that was the only part of her life that was really, it was really that the emotions surrounding that were really taking over every other aspect of her life. And so there were several other parts that came forward in that session with the caretaker that were, not necessarily a part of the caretaker's emotional connection and, feeling, but resonated with that feeling. So they kind of became this little community, we're, holding on to the anger, the frustration, the feelings of being infuriated, the suffocation, the hurt, and everything. So when we worked through, following each individual piece back to the origins, the root cause, each of them had their own experience that were not tied together with that main part that came forward first, the caretaker. But they all had an emotional connection because they all experienced similar emotions for very different reasons. So it triggered a cell memory when this person was young, in that 3-4-year-old age. It triggered a past life where this person had suffocated, and all the helplessness and the hurt and the can't breathe, all those tightening in the throat and everything, and the anger all came forward, and being scared, and all these emotions that kind of vibrate in that same frequency all got reactivated, and they got turned on. So now, this balloon of old emotions was dictating every day, and the conversation that this client was having with her own self when in a role of caretaking, and not in that role of caretaking, because that part of her hadn't been heard, that part of her hadn't been listened to. And so listening and giving the caretaker that piece an opportunity to speak her truth, to speak and share, we were able to work through soul regression and going back to the origins of that moment when that caretaker came in, and working through the screening process of letting go and what the caretaker needed. That piece of that inner part of her was able to find peace and harmony, and able to transmute into a different space. And got me thinking, we all have a piece of us that is like a caretaker, whether for ourselves or those around us. But taking time in your own meditations to sit back and connect with those pieces of you and give them an opportunity to be heard or to be understood can really begin to change the story of living in the past to being able to come into the present and live in your present. So this client, after we worked through the reframe of these parts, once we got, through healing and shifting the story of the root cause of each part from the first time they came to be with this person, we did the past life healing, and we did, shifting in this whole community, these redefined and reframed parts that took on these different roles that went from being stuck in past emotions, past experiences, past conversation, past lives, came forward and took on a new role and redefined themselves, that from this point forward and beyond, that they were good. And they went into the supportive space, the supportive energy. And this client was able to bring these fragmented pieces of herself that were living outside of herself, per se, in her energetic vibrational space, and brought them back to the core, back to self, back home. And they became, as she put it, a team of cheerleaders, a community of supporting and loving space and energy. So, and when we do, I always do, as a rule, a future test moving forward into a situation where they had once experienced the old emotions, and we really get to see if there's another thread into that emotion, or that is going to come up, or if the story and the emotional connection has shifted. And when we went forward, it was a totally different space, and she was in a totally different emotional mindset. And it actually surprised her. She was like, you could see her face, like she's like, oh my God, no, this is how I'm feeling now. And it was like a shocking but very, very powerful moment where she realized that the work that she had just done in this session had really transformed her perception and her mindset around events where she would be assisting and caretaking for somebody she loved. It was just totally different point of view, perception, and idea, and the emotional connection had shifted quite drastically from being infuriated, angered, upset, feeling like alone and helpless and powerless, to completely empowered in that piece with what needed to be done, and coming at it from a different frequency of different mindset and energy, and bringing that frequency, energy, and mindset into the moment and being present with the moment instead of reliving the history of her past through the emotions, and then imprinting those emotions on what's happening in the present. She was able to release that, so that moment could be what it needed to be. She could do what she needed to do and will need to do without the past influencing or imprinting or compounding or dictating the way she looks and sees the moment and feels about the moment. So some really big sessions happening. I'm going to stick with that one today because I've got a couple other ones that I do want to talk about. But the reason that I really wanted to touch on it, I just thought it was super important that we sit and we kind of connect with the pieces of us and discover where they're at, what they're feeling, what's their purpose, what's their job, what are they doing for us, and does it line up for us? Does it line up with who we are and want to be and what we're working towards? Or is there some inner conflict there? And is that inner conflict at a point where you're ready to shift it so that it's no longer in conflict, it becomes a part of yourself again? We bring back those soul pieces in a more harmonic and unified space that is in alignment with you living and breathing, creating from your core versus from our emotional, our imprinted experiences, whether it be now or later, whether it be in this incarnation, another incarnation, this timeline or another timeline. And the reason I know, like, I really truly feel this is always so important is because we do have multiple timelines that we are working through and that we have access to. We have a blueprint that our soul prepares for us that will help guide us as we level up, as we utilize our frequency and open our frequency up and beginning to go into the space of remembering of who we are and what we're capable of and what we can do and how we can move forward in our own true magic and our own true vibration, and bringing that authentic, true vibration and being able to download it into the physical, tangible incarnation, and then, work from that space and live in that space. And as we clear the old conflicts, as we clear the old out, we make space for the new to transmute into our tangible reality. And we get to play with that. We get to create with that new space, and we get to redefine ourselves and redefine how we see ourselves in the world and how we see the world. And we can create amazing change just by sitting with ourselves and getting the old released and healed, I guess is the best way, resolved, and to move forward in a different space, in a different place from the core of who we are. So every session, whether it's a soft change, a hard change, there are changes that are happening. And some sessions are about revealing what's next. As we all know, if you watch the YouTube where we did the live soul regression, within 24 hours, another layer was revealed that was actually the very root of all things that I've created with in this life. And we will also be doing that one live in the next week or two. And, it was interesting because I didn't know that layer exists, but everybody around me knew that layer. That piece, that part was a part of me. And it's funny because when I talk about it, people are like, yeah, and I'm like, really, guys? Really? You knew and nobody said anything? They're like, well, we just thought you knew. We just thought that was who you were. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. It's time for that to heal. But, and that sometimes is how it works. One leads to the next, or sometimes it's you are at the end of that spider web, and you hit the last piece, and then there you are. You're free to move forward, and everything is complete. And that doesn't mean stuff won't come up, because you know what, you're now in a different evolution. You're in a different vibration frequency. There will be stuff there potentially, and if it's come up, you'll have the tools and the ability. You know how to move through them, and we can work through them. But I know sometimes residual stuff comes up over time, because you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've changed so much, and now, okay, this isn't lining up. This piece, this part doesn't resonate with me anymore. So let's go in and let's resolve it. Let's work through it. Let's get into that, discover where it comes from. Is it a past life? Is it in this incarnation? What does it need to shift? And let's shift it so that we can move forward, so that you're constantly creating space for that self-evolution, that self-growth, and constantly moving forward, creating space to be in the present and be aligned with the core of your light body energy, and living and creating from there a little more easily and a little more in flow does change how we interact with this reality. So that is today's morning coffee conversation and Hypnosis Shop Talk. One of the things that, like I said, you guys, just taking time to sit with yourself. What's coming forward? I like to journal on my phone. I do have a physical journal, but I find that I always get my great ideas, or my aha moments, as I call them, while I'm driving. So I always send myself a text, but just giving yourself a little moment to write them down and go back and reflect upon them, or sit with them and see what they mean to you. What does this mean to me that's coming up? How do I resonate with it? And how does it resonate with me? 3 really powerful questions that you can ask that can open up the book of insight of what's going on. And maybe if it's something that is just kind of dissolving out of your vibration and your mindset because you've already made the changes, or is it something that is creating inner conflict on an old pattern from a past life or a current life or habit or belief system that is still rooted in there, or that needs a little bit of attention and a little bit of help to be redefined, to be released, to be shifted back into the light. Like shadow work is, and I truly believe this, and I, from my own experience and experience that I've had with all of my clients, that your shadows are just pieces of your fragmented soul that are stuck in time, that forgot how to turn the lights on and how to shine. And as we go through them, those pieces come back to source, come back to home, and they begin to instantly and quickly remember how to glow, sparkle, and shine. And they go back into that authentic energy and vibration, and they come back to who they really are at the core. So releasing the shadow is really about bringing those pieces back and helping them remember who they are, and it helps you become who you are day by day, and it creates space for magic. So give yourself space for magic when you can. And if you need some help with that, you know I got your back. So, all right, guys, thank you for joining me for coffee. I hope that you have an amazing day, and we will be talking soon. We will be live. I don't know if we'll be live Monday. I will do a post just because I'm on the coast and because I have 2 offices. But when I'm on the coast, I'm spending more time in Vernon. It's a lot longer day, so I'm not sure if I can. I have to look at my schedule for Monday to see if I'll be done by 7. So, all right, guys, I hope that you have an amazing day. I will let you know about Monday. If not, we will be back on track in a couple weeks, and we will be here not this Friday, but the following Friday, a week from today. We'll be back with morning coffee, hypnosis shop talk, and conversation with me. And thank you for your time and space. And all right, we'll talk soon. Cheers. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and we will see you soon.